The Jones Act was passed in 1920 by Congress in order to regulate the transportation of cargo in the United States. It states that any cargo transported between any two American ports must be done on ships that are American built, owned, and with an American crew operating it. Over 80% of all international trade is carried by sea on ships. The main goals of the Jones Act are to provide jobs for the American people as well as to create a safety net for the country if anything were to happen. The Jones Act serves as that safety barrier so that if we were to ever go to war with a foreign country, we would still be able to ship our own goods around the country as we would have our own ships. The problem with the act is that because of the American standards that we have in our own country in regards to environment and things, it is going to cost more for goods to get shipped from port to port, which many people do not like. However, that is part of the process, and this act does supply many jobs for American people as well as increase the GDP for the country. You will now hear from Steve Forbes, who is the editor-in-chief of Forbes magazine, about some of the problems that the Jones Act has on our country.
Back in 1920, Congress passed the protectionist Jones Act, which stipulated that any cargo transported between two American ports must be carried in ships that are American built and owned and crewed by Americans. Trouble is, U.S.-made big ships these days cost more than 4 times the vessels made by foreign competitors. The result of the Jones Act is significantly higher costs for consumers and businesses. The law has distorted shipping patterns all across North America. It particularly hurts Hawaii, Alaska, Puerto Rico, and Guam, which are more dependent on waterborne products than the continental U.S. The most pronounced perversions of the act are in energy. For example, it would be logical for Puerto Rico to get liquefied natural gas, LNG, from Georgia or Louisiana. But since there are no U.S.-made LNG tankers, the island imports gas from Russia and other foreign sources.
Many people give lots of criticism to the act, especially those living in either Hawaii, Alaska, Puerto Rico, or Guam, because of what it does to those islands. Studies estimate that the Jones Act costs the U.S. economy more than $1 billion annually for what some people consider to be no good reason. It is very apparent that the Jones Act has flaws. In fact, many times during natural disasters, a president will issue a waiver to the act allowing cargo to be shipped on a foreign vessel. An example of this is in 2017 when President Trump granted a waiver in order to assist Puerto Rico after the Hurricane Maria. Another problem that the Jones Act creates for the country is the increase of freight that is carried on land across the country instead of ships. It is noted that trucks can emit more than 100 times the amount of carbon dioxide compared to a ship carrying the same volume of cargo across the same amount of distance. Many people think the solution is to completely get rid of the act, which does solve some of the problems regarding the high prices. Doing this, however, will eliminate the safety net of having our own American ships ready for us if we were to ever go to war. I think instead of getting rid of the entire thing, we should modify it in order to be more reasonable for all parts of the country. We should allow a certain number of foreign ships to carry cargo from U.S. port to U.S. port, which would drastically help out the islands, but still keep American ships in our fleet transporting cargo just in case anything were to ever happen, as well as keeping jobs for the American people. In conclusion, the Jones Act is a very important piece of legislation for the United States. However, it is in many ways outdated because it was written and hasn't been changed in over 100 years and needs to be modified. The basic principle of the Act and the protection that it provides for the U.S. is crucial for the safety of our economy. However, there are some pieces to the Act that are bad for certain areas and that must change.